tells me about your word on Sundays. I never go, but tell them I'll go with them one day. They say you have the answers I've been longing for, but somehow I don't feel like I'm on one accord with you. I believe you have something for me alone. Humbly, Lord, how do I approach the throne? Cause all I have to offer, Lord, is it enough? I give you my trust. I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dried the eyes of many, healed more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Hey, is there room for me? Oh, no. I heard how you saved Daniel from the lion's den, and stayed with Jonah in the well he was within. I need the protection, I know I'm not worthy. I'm in a state of desperation, Lord, I need that mercy. I believe you have something for me alone. Humbly, Lord, how do I approach the throne? Cause all I have to offer, Lord, is it enough? I give you my trust. I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dried the eyes of many, healed more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room for me? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Is there room for me? Tell me, is there room? Is there room for me? I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Can you take me in? I heard your wounds dry the eyes of many, heal more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Can you take me in? I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Can you take me in? I heard you dry the eyes of many, heal my heart. Can you take me in? I heard you're a miracle worker, graceful healer for sinner. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? I have heard you dry the eyes of many, heal more hearts, love for plenty. Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me? Can you take me in? Is there room for me? Is there room for me?
You're listening to Launch with Kim
and Dr. Newt on Praise.fm. Welcome to Launch
with Kim
and Dr. Newt. We're getting better at it?
Yeah, I think so. As long as you're happy with it, that's all that matters. Hey, everybody.
She don't look happy.
I mean, I'm happy for you. Sing your little song. Hi. Let me say hello to some people out here.
I was going to tickle and make them laugh.
Hello, James Morgan, Teresa James. Hey, there's my niece Janique, Ruth. There's my cousin Ruthie. Hello. There's my daughter, Tori Dorm on here. Hello. And we got some family that's here in the other room watching. So I'm so glad that they are here. They chefed it up. We got it smelling all good in the kitchen, make your stomach growl, want to go get a little something to eat. But we're going to wait, we're going to wait till the launch is done. Or is the launch never done?
No, launch never.
The launch is
always
never
launch.
Done.
Launch.
Launch in your life. How you guys doing?
You stop launching, you done.
Facts. That's facts. How is everybody doing? Hopefully you guys are keeping warm. You know, we here on the East Coast, I don't know if you're anywhere from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, you might have had this good old snowstorm.
Just a little bit of snow. A little bit of snow.
From the east to the west
Yeah.
of Pennsylvania.
But that's like an old school rap, from the east to the west, to the west, to the east.
Okay, well, if you had a snowstorm, then so did I. It was pretty, it actually fell fast and heavy. He wants to rap tonight, y'all. I'm going to just tell Lady Rain to go over there and scratch up a little bit and let him go ahead and do his thing.
There's just some things that you just don't do well, you know, but nobody tells you. You know what I mean? They won't tell you. They just let you do it.
Let you do your thing. I hope everybody had a great day today and a great weekend. I know I did. I got a lot of stuff done today. I was stressing for about 2 weeks trying to figure out some things that I needed to do, and then I just kind of told myself, you know, just take your time and do it. Definitely it's for Ami's World, and also for the course, another course I'm about to teach. I transfer some things from one course to the next, so it's just
we should play their theme song one day. Her theme song's hot. Ami's World.
He likes to sing it. Yeah. It seems like the adults be singing it more than the kids, but I do have some kids that sing it. So, nonetheless, guys, we're going to continue.
So before we start, I just have a question.
Okay.
So, I say launch.
Uh-huh.
How do you say it?
Launch.
You say launch. I say launch.
That's because you up there from the media, the good media.
So what's better, you know?
Pennsylvania.
I just you know, I think my way is better.
Launch.
Yeah.
You say launch.
Yeah.
You say it like you're from New York.
Nah.
But you are not from New York. But that's how you say it. You say it like they do. My niece Janique's on here. She probably says it the same way as you.
Launch.
Launch. No, but launch. Launch your life.
Well, if Nick's got my back, that's all I need.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So you know we started last week. While Luke's getting that prepared, I'll talk a little bit about it. Or is he already ready? Oh, okay. We started last week with kind of like breaking down some fears and some things that we deal with in relationships in order to make sure that our relationships are strong.
Right.
We're dealing with certain areas that I say it
she
the
said
same
the
way.
Same way. That's what I'm talking about.
She confirmed that she said the same way. But we dealt with something last week. We actually started with things that speak to us.
Right. So our overall topic, we're just dealing with marriage.
Okay. Go ahead and take
just that piece so that they know kind of what the little pieces are. The overall topic is marriage. So last week we kind of, let me go ahead and share the screen and show you. We had a PowerPoint last week. So I'm going to share this screen. I am disabled in the share piece. So you got to enable my share ability, Lady Rain.
So last week we started talking about lies in the mind, things that are in our minds, things that we think are going on in our lives, or things that are going on in our head, and we actually apply them to our relationships, and they actually cause problems. And a lot of times we don't even realize that we're dealing with those things, but there are just things that are lying to us, lying to our spirit man, lying to us overall. So definitely hit lies of the mind last week. We played you a couple of videos. They were funny, they were cute, but they were basic, just fun things to kind of look at. But you actually could evaluate how sometimes we, based upon our upbringing or what the people we hung around, you know, we actually think that certain people are a certain way. Because the movie we played was about Claire Huxtable, and her son-in-law was actually saying that she serves her husband. He was surprised that she served him. And that is like absolutely nothing to do with serving. It just is a part of being married and supporting each other.
Exactly.
And then there was another video we played where
that's my favorite.
That was your favorite one. You can go ahead and talk about that one a little bit.
Okay.
This is your favorite.
I should have said it was my favorite, because I would have had to talk, right? but that one, it was the young married couple, and she was saying, he started out saying, you know, that a lot of people don't think marriage is attractive.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't look attractive. It doesn't look sexy. You know what I mean? Based on today's society and media.
Right.
And he says, so really, to be married, you have to want to be married, right? And his wife went on and said, listen, for her, it's really thinking about one more person.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, you know, like if I'm getting a cup of coffee, then I just make a cup of coffee for just one more person.
Right, little
You know,
extra.
And
right.
that was like the theme of their little clip was, you know what, coffee for just one more person. And I think about that a lot actually, like when I'm, you know, making a salad or something like that. Some cup of tea, you know, Kim, you want some tea? You know, it's just as simple as that.
Making a little
as
bit
far as
more
marriage
for
is
your
concerned.
spouse.
Yes.
And that's pretty much what it is. It's going a little bit further for that person in a relationship. Those little things like that are the things that matter.
Right.
It's not those great big old gifts and, you know, things. I mean, those are nice things to have, but those aren't things that you can do all the time. That's not going to be what your life, it's not going to be a reality.
That's not relationship.
Right, right.
Relationship means it's moving. You know. So last week we kind of just to jump in real quick. He gave you a quick assignment to ask, you know, who are you? You know, so you can kind of self-evaluate yourself. You know, like, you know, what are your ministries? How do you view yourself? How do you think you're viewed? And we actually to write those things down. Then we played that was the other video we played.
Yeah, about divorce and how
divorce.
crazy it is.
Divorce being worse than death, and how Miles Monroe said, "Listen, you know, with death, it's done and over. You know, with divorce, it keeps going. You know,
right.
You could run into people or
it's never final.
It's never final.
You know, so it's worse than death. Death, you know, that person is gone. You're not going to see them again. You know, and you can kind of deal with that. But divorce, you see that person at the grocery store, you see him at the movies, you know, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. So it is worse than death.
And Lady Ray says it like me too.
Yeah, I saw Lady Rain said that she says it like you. He got two people on his side tonight. It's going to be like this all night.
That's all I need.
He got two people, Janique and Lady Rain, the New Yorkers. Okay.
So we went in and we gave you some divorce rate data, which basically, you know, not to go over all of them again, but I think you kind of see it on the screen. You know, there were about over 1 million divorces in that year. I think that was 2019 data that we had there. The highest rates were in the South, the lowest in the Northeast. The average length of a marriage is about 8 years. And about 42% of all marriages end in divorce in the U.S., which is down from 50%. But we explained the reason for that is because our millennial generation, less of them are getting married.
Yes.
So if there's less getting married, then there's less actually getting divorced. Then we talked about 10 common reasons for divorce, and we got this data from conglomerations of lawyers across the country who all reported to one source.
Divorce lawyers.
Right, divorce lawyers.
Specialize in divorce.
Right, sorry about that. And these were their top 10 reasons. And we kind of went through each of those reasons so that everyone could kind of have an idea. So we're not going to go back and go through all of them. You can catch the broadcast from last week. Either on our Facebook page, Launch with Kim and Dr. Newt, I think it's on there. Yeah. It's also on Praise.fm and also their YouTube page. Then we jumped into the first thing. So we said that there are 3 categories that could set you up to end in divorce. And the first one was lies in the mind, right? And the first lie we talked about, as Kim said, with the video, with the Huxtables, you know, just something as small as that. So we
criteria and expectations that you have from your past relationships or your upbringing.
Right. So we define that lies in the mind as things that we, like Kim said, things we experienced in our past, and we accepted those things.
I even like to say not only accepted, but you also believe those things about marriage.
Yes.
And because you believe them, you bring them with you when you get married.
Right. And those were the things that we talked about. We broke down each of those. I think it was 7 of them. We broke down each of them so that you know, you can kind of understand what we meant when we were talking about them. So each of those categories are lies that are in our minds, things that we think, and we bring them into our marriage, like Kim said, and it affects how effective your marriage is, or whether it even lasts.
Yeah, it's funny. I was watching a video, maybe it was several months ago. It was T.D. Jakes and his wife, and they had talked together, and it was something they had mentioned. They mentioned that when you marry someone, you actually marry their family.
Oh, yeah.
You marry whatever happened in that household.
Yes.
And then what happens, and Newt and I talk about it often too. And it was funny when I saw that video, because we had written about it in our book, that stuff that comes from your household comes in your relationship, and it's actually the foundation until you
Break it up.
Yes, break it up. And that's one thing about planting anything. The ground has to be broken up
But the
in
problem-
order for the plant to grow.
The problem with foundations is if you let them sit too long,
Yeah.
then they harden and they get thicker, and you begin to build on it, which means now when you got to go back and fix things, you have to tear something down because it's built on that foundation.
And then the other part of that, built on that foundation, because my daughter, she does great with gardening. But one of those things is she talked about was turning that dirt over. So think of you just planting in that hard ground. So that plant is only going to go so far. It's going to be rooted only so far, or you're not going to have the best yield from the plant. You know, so that's the same thing in your relationship. Your relationship is just like that seed. Depending on that ground you planted in is going to determine how well the relationship is.
Right,
So it's got to be broken up. You've got to claim your baggage, and you
Yes.
definitely have got to make some
I
decisions.
was just getting ready to
You
say
about to
that.
hit it?
That's
Yeah.
why, no, not about to hit it, but I mean, that's why we wanted to emphasize the book,
Yeah.
Baggage Claiming, because
Absolutely.
claiming that baggage is, in essence, breaking
Breaking
up
up
what
that
we call
ground.
that fallow ground, breaking up
It
that
is.
fallow ground and getting it ready for the seeds, putting the rows down and the
Mhm.
things that you need so that it's ready for growth. So that was kind of what we talked about last week. And we want to move on. So we kind of ended up the week by saying, listen, accept that that lies in the mind are in play.
Those lies.
Yeah, and that we failed to face them and didn't know that we could change them. That is kind of the loop that people have. So we're going to add to that this week. So again, that was lies in the mind, and we want to add to it this week and go to the next category, which is fears that speak.
So keep in mind, these are things that are lead to divorce.
Right.
Things that lead to not only divorce in your marriage, but in any relationship,
Yes,
which
yes.
means a split, a separation, a disconnection.
Right.
In any relationship, that is exactly what these things do. So those lies, those things that you believe that are false, how do they get there? There are things that are speaking to you.
Right.
There is something that's speaking to you. And where is that voice coming from? We're going to talk about that tonight.
So let's jump into fears that speak. And we'll kind of start it out this way. I think I have a video, and yes, I do. Uh-oh, something happened again. Oh, there
That's
it
okay.
goes. It's playing. I think it's going to play. There you go.
And hopefully you can hear it. Did you hit the sound?
I did,
Okay.
I did. So we have a quick video from another relationship person.
I am Rachel Moyban-Wachtel, and welcome to the Relationship Suite, the place to learn how to create healthy relationships. Today's topic is dealing with the fear of getting married again. And Rhonda writes, Dear Rachel, my fiance and I have been engaged for 4 years. He was married once before, and every time I ask him to set a date, he brings up his fear around marriage. This angers me, as I don't know why he would ask me if he doesn't plan to marry. Do you have any suggestions on how I could talk to him about this and get him to see my side? Rhonda, it's important to view this problem as a way to avoid bigger problems in the future. Here's what I suggest. Find out if he's concerned about any issues in your relationship and wants to resolve them before you get stuck in a lifetime commitment of marriage. You also want to gently talk more about the marriage that didn't work and point out the differences in your relationship, assuring him that it will not be the same. You also need to take care of you and set and plan a date to get married that makes sense, giving him enough time to deal with his issues and fears about getting married again. You can even offer to participate in premarital counseling, or if he wants to pursue his own individual counseling, if he's willing to go this route. So thank you, Rhonda, for sending in your question. And for all of you watching, I'd like to know, have you ever been in a relationship where you were involved with someone who had commitment issues? The discussion happens over at Relationship.
So we're going to go ahead and, for time's sake, kind of move past that slide. But what
Sweet Doc.
we move past this slide. Sorry about that. We want to kind of point out to you before we kind of define the fears to speak that we chose that video because it has some key points. First, it talked about someone being having fear to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're talking about fears that speak. So if you heard her say, she said, listen, talk about the things
Yeah.
that you've seen in past marriages.
Right.
So bring them out, put them on the table.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to have that conversation. Don't be afraid to see or say what you like or don't like.
Right.
Even in each other.
Mm-hmm.
Especially actually in each
Yeah.
other, because you got to deal with each other.
Exactly.
So those things that remind you of something that you might have seen maybe in your parents' marriage or
Mhm.
some other marriage, or just things that just kind of eat at you a little, even before getting married.
Absolutely.
Like, talk about them,
Mhm.
and be upfront and transparent, saying, when this happens, I think of this, or
Mhm.
I feel this way. Now,
Right.
don't put it on them, because it's your feelings.
Right.
And no one can make you feel anything, so they're your feelings, but put that on the table, because maybe there's some conversation that can be had, some what's the word I want to say, explanation
Mhm.
around that, so you can make that move forward. And then don't be afraid to get that, what we call it, that fourth person, to get to get some counseling.
That fourth person is you, your spouse. God
Mhm.
is that third person. That's that 3 chord, and then that fourth person can be a counselor.
Right. But the point why we showed that video is we want to point out to you that even from different demographic,
Absolutely.
that there are fears.
Mhm.
There are things speaking in your ears about why you should not get married, or if you are married, why it's not going to work.
Right, because that's what usually happens in the very beginning. It's something you already think. I've talked to people who already, before they got married, had reservations. But for the sake of getting married, they got married anyway.
Right.
And then those reservations, guess what? They didn't go anywhere.
Right.
Those reservations, you brought them with you.
Okay, reservation, Reservations don't move.
Reservations don't move. You brought the reservations with you, especially since you never dealt with it.
Yeah.
You never had a conversation about it.
Right.
So those reservations came along. And then guess what those reservations do? They just keep on speaking louder. And so that's what we want to talk about, that fear that speaks. And I first want to just talk a little bit about what fear is. You want to go ahead and...
Well, for our definition, and then
Yeah.
I'll take off screen so you can see it's a little better. But for our definitions of fears that speak, they're basically, and I'll just read, I know you guys can read, but I'll read it to you. They are things that cause apprehensions or reservations from being totally transparent and vulnerable
Absolutely.
to your wife or to your husband, to the
Mhm.
person that you're about to enter that covenant in.
Mhm.
What is holding you back from being this totally transparent?
Right.
That could be shaming yourself.
Mhm.
It could be things that have been done in the past.
Yep.
It could be things that have happened to you.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of jump into all those things. So I'm going to stop share for a minute. Kim wants to tell you.
I just want to talk to you a little bit about what fear is, the way I see it. Fear has one purpose, and I really believe that it has one purpose. Although there are many members that work in fear, or many workers, fear has one purpose. That one purpose is to stop you from fulfilling your purpose. And it's also really the main reason is to stop the plan of God. So whatever that thing is that you're to do, or whatever that relationship you're to have, it wants to block it. So that's what fear's goal is. Fear's goal is to make you rethink, to redirect you from doing the thing that you should do. So just know fear is not a friend. It's not on your side. It's out to get you. So you need to know that. And then I took it and looked at it as this fear. It takes your focus. It's going to take your focus off of the thing that you're supposed to be doing. It's going to control your emotions. That's your E. It's going to control your emotions. So you cannot even control the way you feel. The other thing it's going to do, it's going to arrest your belief system. It will then arrest what it is that you really believe deep down, because it's speaking to you and telling you something completely different. And then the last thing it does is it repels love. Anything that tries to push away love is definitely an enemy of God. So that's what fear does. It takes your focus, it controls your emotions, it arrests your belief system, and then it repels love. Definitely.
Right.
Good.
Tell them about that repel love. You got a real good scripture for
Oh yeah. The scripture that I have was 1 John 4:18, and the scripture reads just in the beginning, there is no fear in love. So just think of that. Knowing that if there's no fear in love, then that means if fear is on board, then the full position of love is not operating full, the perfect love is not operating in its full position.
Right.
It's not, the whole purpose of fear is to keep you from love. So the reason you need love is to drive out fear, because as we know, the scripture says that perfect love does what? It drives out fear.
Right.
And the sad thing about it is it's hard for us to be honest that certain love isn't on board,
Right.
because we're afraid. We don't want to admit that. But the truth is we may not be covering every area of our life with love.
Right.
Because we're afraid in certain areas. You might be confident in certain things. And I was telling you, when he and I got together, I was confident in certain things.
Right.
In certain things. But there were other things that I was really, really not that confident in. I was like insecure in.
Right.
But I would have never admitted that.
Right.
Because you're afraid of how you look towards people. So
Right.
look, there's fear again.
Even that person that's on your team.
Even the person that's on your team. Fear's goal is to stop you from actually operating and functioning in full love. And then if you want to know what perfect love is, my definition is it's a flawless, without defect, lacking nothing, completeness that drives everything defective, incomplete, lacking, and flawed out of your life.
Yeah, say that again.
Yes, perfect love is flawless, without defect, lacking nothing,
No lack.
right? Completeness.
Complete.
That's right. That drives everything defective,
Everything's going.
incomplete,
Okay.
lacking, and flawed out of our lives.
Oh, wow.
So definitely, why would you not want the thing that can help you move those negative things out of your life to be operating in your life?
So by your definition, love, perfect love, is not just talking about relationships.
No, it's
It's
just
talking about purpose.
it's
about
perfect.
everything.
Exactly, everything. And the beautiful thing about this love is you don't have to do nothing for it. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to perform for it. You don't have to do anything, not for perfect love.
Mhm.
Perfect love is just, it just already is.
So,
It is.
So if perfect love is in play in my life, and say I'm loving myself,
Mhm.
then that means I'm operating in my vein, my purpose, the reason I was created,
Exactly.
transparently and openly
Mhm.
with all I have.
When perfect love is on point. And I mean, I know all of us, we can raise our hand. How many of us deal with fear every day? I mean, every day, something. And because what fear does is it speaks. It doesn't have a physical body.
Mhm.
It's not even audible. It doesn't even have that much power.
Right.
It is a silent voice that's in our head. Remember we talked last week, those lies in your mind? Those are the things that are speaking to us,
Yes.
telling us over and over again negative things about ourselves.
Right.
Ourselves, our relationship, our family.
Right.
I mean, and what we do, we fuel it. Because not only do we listen, we then start to repeat what it says to us. Has anybody seen fear walking? Has fear ever just come and sat on your bed and say, here, I'm here to bring you fear? No, because there is no physical body for
You
it.
can't go to the store and buy a pound,
No.
buy a pound of fear.
It's exactly, it's a spirit.
Right.
It's a spirit.
Right.
And its whole purpose is to keep you from love.
To which we give fuel.
Exactly. We fuel it. But when I started our relationship, like I said, I was like dealing with fear in certain areas, but only certain areas. I know you want to get to that.
So you want to do that before you get to
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to that.
All right.
I'll be a little excited.
So
He's going to show you a slide.
we'll show you another video real fast
Oh, was it
as
this?
we jump into it. You want to show us from now? You want to skip it?
No, go ahead. Whatever you think.
So this video really is about, well here, let me just show you.
I was afraid.
You know what? I think I gotta tell it to I gotta turn the sound on
Oh.
with share. And how come I'm not seeing it?
So while he's looking for that, that's the goal of fear. And thank you, Pastor Clay. That definition is so real. Whatever it is that fear is, love is completely the opposite.
Yes.
Coming into marriage, I was afraid that I would lose myself. There were relationships that I had been in the past where I didn't feel like I lost myself, but I felt like I compromised to a place that wasn't realistic, that I could keep long term. And then I found myself being bitter and angry at the person as well. And so I had a lot of fear coming in, just like, I don't want to lose the Megan that's fun and free-spirited and a little bit crazy and bold and fearless and all these things, because I become docile, or I become, where I feel like someone's property over, like a caged lion, and I'm a Leo. I'm very much a Leo. And so, I did have a lot of fear. And what I learned over time was, one, I take pride in who I am as a wife. I take pride in my position. I take pride in being his backbone. I take pride in being his eyes and ears. I take pride in covering him. I take pride in his respect for me and my respect for him.
Hi, YouTubers.
Right there.
I'm excited to give you an update
Just that right there lets you
about our own
that
YouTube channel.
fear is, do you see how she could quickly shift from what she was afraid of? And then did you hear the long list of all the great things that she is happy to be now?
Yes.
That just lets you know how loud fear speaks.
Right.
Because that thing that was bothering her before was like the first thing she spoke about. I was afraid I was going to lose me. I was afraid I was going to lose this. I wasn't going to have this. I was losing my power as a person, which is one of the things that we wrote about last week.
Right.
Losing my power as a person
Right.
is something that we
Right into you.
right. Well, one of the things that I had said is that when we started, I was like really fearful. I was afraid to kind of submit like my whole heart. And some of my concerns were, I thought that he was going to hurt me because I was hurt before.
Mm-hmm.
Megan Good said she was afraid of losing who she was. I might have been afraid of that too. I was afraid that I had gained something after my first separation. I gained things that were just mine. And I was afraid to completely submit. So I was like skeptical.
Right.
I was afraid. I didn't want to be hurt again. I was afraid of being vulnerable, because I didn't want to be left struggling again and have to start all over again. So, you have this and even if you don't do anything about it, it's in your mind. That thing is talking to you, and then I was also afraid to look bad in front of my family. I didn't want to look bad in front of my family. I didn't want to walk away with the same disappointments that I had in my first relationship. I didn't want my family to view me as a fool. Oh, here you are again. I didn't want those things. So not only was I afraid to completely commit to the relationship, I was also afraid not to, because I was afraid of what my family said. So, I was just like being pulled both ways.
Right.
I was going through a real difficult time, and I didn't really say anything. So losing my power as a person for sure was something that I definitely was afraid of.
So these are some of the reasons, or some of the fears that we believe are speaking very loudly in folks' ears. So if you notice the two pictures, you got like just the ear and someone in the ear just kind of talking. So that's really what's happening. No one else can hear that fear, but inside your head is a megaphone screaming out loud the things that you're apprehensive of, the things that that you're basically afraid of, that keep you, by our definition, bottled up and not just open and transparent. So like for me, I know so this is both about our second marriage, and we're not speaking, when we talk about our previous marriages, we're not speaking badly of our previous partners.
We was just
takes two to tango.
That's
right. Takes two to tango. But in our my first marriage, like when I left, I left everything. And that was just my choice of what I did, thinking that would kind of win back the relationship. So I was trying to buy it back with the little bit of stuff we had. Well, that didn't work, but I had already given it up. So now I didn't have anything. I had a car that I called the bucket. That was like my possessions or whatever I could fit in it. So in our second marriage, when we got together, I had all these fears in my mind that if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be stuck again.
Mhm.
You know, do I have it in me to start over again? You know,
Right.
you know, am I going to be financially taken advantage of?
Mhm.
You know, so those were the things that were like screaming in my head.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know if I said, I know in the beginning I didn't say them out loud, maybe
Right.
towards the time when things began to, you know, hit a peak or a height with us
Mhm.
in our relationship, you know, when we were, you know, had no choice but to address
Right.
our baggage and each other, or just separate and go our separate ways. And that wasn't until then that I began to kind of say those things.
Right.
But they were my issues.
Mhm.
They weren't Kim's. So I just wanted to give that example of a fear
Mhm.
financially being taken advantage of. And that wasn't Kim's issue at all. It was totally mine.
Right. Another thing that we said is you can't maintain the new relationship. That was a fear of mine. Can I maintain this new relationship? I think we both might have had that
one
fear.
too. Yeah, I'll jump in.
You know, can we actually maintain the relationship?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so you know, I felt as though I could, but what was my reservation was that I was afraid of maintaining it and still being hurt.
Okay.
So
So for me, wondering whether I can maintain a new relationship or not. So to me, Kim was like a step up. You know what I mean? Like I came up, right? So but I knew me. I still had issues. You know, I still had things that I just refused to address, and they were character issues. They weren't like, you know, like little things. They were character issues. You know, that I lived with.
mhm.
So I was wondering, you know, am I going to be able to maintain someone of this caliber, you know, for long? Because eventually, you know, what's done in the dark comes out the light. So
You start to unravel.
yeah. So
you know,
so I mean, so that fear was in my mind, rather than just dealing with the character issue.
that's the part.
You know,
That's the part.
It was, you know, I'm afraid I'm not going to keep the relationship. You know, so that we could have added another dot. Said you can't keep everything. You know,
Yeah.
you got to open your hand to get the new thing. When you open your hand, the old thing should drop out,
Mhm.
so you can grab the new thing.
Before we go on to the last one, I had written down this little note that for me, I would say I was operating on a partial level or position of love, and I mentioned that before, and I was lacking in certain areas, and the areas were all driven by fear. I had said that, but this is the one part, and any area that I was confident in was a low faith area, but high performance area.
Oh, yeah. You got to explain that.
So it didn't take much faith to do the gifts that I already knew that I had, because I had been doing them all my life.
Right.
I always could sing. I knew how to direct. I mean, there were things that I had the ability to do. So those were low faith. I didn't have to have as much faith to do those things.
Mhm.
Those were more performance based, and that was part of my issue. So when you start to perform instead of transform, then what happens? What goes wrong when you get to the point where that performance is no longer accepted or needed? Then what do? You know, you can't maneuver your way any longer.
Mhm.
You can't manipulate your way any further. Now you have to say, I've got to make some changes, or this person is like, okay, I'm over. You already saw that trick. Like those old tricks don't work any longer. So being low in faith and high performance, I remember finding myself in certain areas. Those were my areas of confidence. Those are the things that I could do well.
Yeah. And to kind of speak on that, I don't know if it's related. Well, it is related, but so for folks that have been married for a while, you know, you got 25, 30 years, you know, under your belt,
Mhm.
and you're like, you know, we're on autopilot. We're
Right.
good. You know, we understand each other. So I want to say something to you, see if you can catch this. Success is the enemy of purpose and progress.
Mm.
Success is the
Wow.
enemy of purpose and progress.
Mhm.
You can get comfortable in past successes,
Come on.
and you will not even pay attention to your purpose
Yep.
and the progress you could be making if you were pursuing it.
That's definitely connected.
You know, your purpose is much greater than what you've accomplished.
And your performance.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. So what you've accomplished is not the epitome or the apex of your purpose.
Mhm.
That's just what you accomplished up to now. The fact that you're still breathing
Right.
and living means that there's more,
Mhm.
right? So if you get stuck in past successes and say we're
Mhm.
coasting and we're okay, then you have put what's called the law of the lid.
Right.
John Maxwell talks about the law of the lid on yourself. You cannot go any higher or get any better or experience anything more than what you already have.
So true.
So that's why we're saying these things to you.
Sharing them
Yeah,
with
yeah.
you, because these were our experiences. And so what Newt's talking about is that same thing about that performance. We get performance based in our relationships because the other areas that we're not that confident in are all driven by fear.
Right.
And the problem with that is fear is never supposed to drive.
No.
Never. Love is what drives out fear. Fear is never supposed to be behind the wheel.
Right.
How does fear have so much power? We do it. We give it the fuel. And because we don't let love like we let like patience. You know, patience is supposed to, you're supposed to let it. That's what love is. You're supposed to let love. Let it grow. Let it develop you. Let it do all those things. The scripture in James 1:4 says, but let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect, entire, wanting nothing. That's the same thing love does.
Right.
Same thing that love says in Corinthians. Love is patient. It's kind. It doesn't envy. It's not boast. It's not proud. It's not dishonoring. It's not self-seeking. See those things? It makes sure that you are covered. All of those areas of your life, you go without wanting.
Right.
If you allow love, like patience, to have its perfect work in you.
Right.
But unfortunately, like I said, I was working on a high performance. He's about to laugh because there's a movie he always talks about a performance. But I was operating on a high performance level, and then when what I could do was no longer needed, because there was seasons for that stuff.
Things revolve.
Yes, and even in your relationship,
Evolve.
you know, even in your relationship, the dating season, the thing is sparky and everything. What are you going to do after that?
Right.
We talked about that last week when you say, you know, bored in the relationship. Well, what are you doing to change it? How have you transformed, or are you still trying to perform?
You know, and as you grow together in a marriage, and you're growing as a human being, because each of us have spokes on the wheel of our lives, our individual lives. And then we have a mission together that we're working on. So as we grow as individuals, each of those spokes of our lives, they demand things from us. So as our time goes by, what Kim needed from me, or what I needed from Kim, or what I gave Kim or she gave me, that changes.
Exactly.
You know, that can shift based on, you know, that spoke of the wheel of our life that is gaining time or energy or resources, or what we're working on together as a marriage.
Right.
So we gotta pay attention to those things.
And unfortunately, fear will keep you not focused on those things because you're comfortable in what it is that you already can do.
The fear of change, the fear of moving from where you are. So I don't know if you want to touch on the belittle piece or.
Well, basically in the relationship, I had a fear of being belittled. I had a fear of being degraded. And that, I think I did talk about that. Didn't want my family to see me as a failure again, or not wanting to be a failure again myself. Right. So I was fearful. Right. I was afraid of it, you know.
And I had a similar experience. So my mom and dad were married until my dad died. So 50 some years they were together. And when I had my first marriage, broken divorce, that was really a problem for me. So I don't even, today, just being honest, I don't know if the real problem with the first divorce was the fact that I was no longer with the person, or the fact that now there was a divorce on my record.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And,
I get that.
Because that wasn't something that was, in my family. It was, so I felt like, oh man, well actually it was. It's just not with me.
Right.
So anyway.
You didn't want that on your,
yes.
your record.
So even when Kim and I got married, I didn't even say anything. We got married. I didn't say anything until after we got married, because I didn't want to go through those things, and so those were fears that I had inside of myself.
And to talk a little bit more about fear for all of you, now I know we're hitting on marriage and our relationship, but also what you want to consider with fear is that those things, fears, where do they come from? Those are things that have been spoken to you as a child, things that you experienced in your family's household. If you experienced a lot of divorce, and there were no marriages to look up to, then you had a fear that you were going to have a divorce. If your relationship, if you saw a lot of abuse, then you were afraid, oh, in this relationship this is going to happen, or if you were left to carry the weight, then you bring that stuff with you.
Yes.
It comes with you until you address it. It just does not disappear.
Go away.
And that's what I think happens to many of us in relationship. We automatically think, okay, happily ever after, like we talked about the fairy tale last week. There's no such thing.
No.
There is none.
What you build.
It's what you build.
Yeah. So Kim talked. She opened another can of worms about what we saw growing up or what was said in our. So a lot of times parents, things go on in our relationships and our children are watching. They see it, they hear it, and we don't really talk to them about it because it's our relationship. So it's kind of like grown folks' business kind of thing. But what's happening is those children are seeing it, they're hearing it. That means it's now you're leaving it up to them to interpret
What it is.
Yes.
Yep.
And that's so dangerous
Terrible.
because foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. So, it takes us, the rod. We are the rod. We are the boundaries, to be able to speak with them so that we can train them and help them to see, wait a minute, this is how this can be deciphered.
When Newt said rod, hold on, let me just tell. When he says rod, he's talking about the rod of correction. A lot of times we think it's just a spanking, but that rod is your representation,
Right.
And how you teach them.
Yes.
Go ahead, baby. Sorry, I just wanted to-
It's the boundaries.
The boundaries.
It's the property line.
But that interpretation thing
Yes.
was deep.
Okay.
That's real.
So my point is, you can't leave that stuff just floating in the air and think that your child is going to understand what you understand and shake the filter and filter out things and come up with this wonderful
They're not.
conclusion.
They're not.
They're not, because there's just too many factors.
Absolutely.
There's too many loyalties. There's too many inconsistencies. There's too many outside forces. And you got to remember that we are spiritual beings in a physical body. The enemy is a spiritual being. And when he sees that opportunity with all that fog open in that child's mind, don't you know he's going to assign demons to speak into that, so that child reinforces that idea, a false idea in their mind?
Absolutely.
So now the enemy doesn't even have to attack their marriage.
Exactly.
It's already grown.
And the child is 6.
Yes.
So get that. The child is only 5 or 6 years old already. That seed is planted. And from our book, I just want to read this little excerpt on baggage claim, you guys. So make sure you get the baggage claim book, chapter 3. And it says, sadly, his feelings towards me were like seeds which produced a harvest of negative thoughts and feelings that I embraced about myself. This is how I felt. I felt my stepfather hated me. And so I automatically established that he had these feelings of hatred towards me. And so they were like seeds. I started to grow them. He didn't need to say anything negative to me. He didn't need to do anything to me. Those seeds were planted by just the looks that he had. I could not interpret, like Newt was saying.
Right.
I had no way of deciphering what this man was feeling. So automatically, I assumed he hated me. So guess who else hated me? I did.
Right.
Kids can't determine. Those are fears that I had been growing up. I didn't want my kids to feel that way. But I reproduced that.
Right. And here's the danger of us giving you examples. When we give you the examples, you think that what we're saying just applies to that example.
No, it doesn't.
And we're giving you a principle right now that
it.
applies to everything across the board. What we're saying is that if you don't address, talk to, and deal with, your children because of your poor decisions in your relationships,
and it's never too late,
or the conflict that you might have in your household out loud, then they are then going to begin to grow seeds. Those seeds are going to grow in them and they're going to produce something. And here's the deal, you can't control what it produces. It's totally left up to their interpretation and every spiritual and physical factor that comes into play during that growth. So it's a principle.
Yes, it is.
It's a principle. So don't take just our examples. I'm sorry to take so much time to say that.
No, it's so important.
But I don't want you to mistake that it just only applies to the examples we're giving. We're just using ourselves because it's our examples. It's our reference point. but you have one too.
You have to look at your own.
Yes. So as far as fears in the that speak are concerned, we wanted to go back and touch on last week where we talked about lies in the mind. So the conclusion, like for this week, is, and before we go to next week, we'll do the third piece. But we're saying, listen, we accept that the way that we kind of, I'm stuttering here. The way that we fix or counteract or battle those fears that speak and those lies in our mind is that we have to accept
That they are in play.
that the lies in the mind and the fears are in speak, that they're in play, they're real things.
They are real, and they are speaking. They are talking,
Yes.
and they are lying dormant.
Yes.
And they are telling you certain things. And I know everyone out there, if I would ask you to type in something that the enemy told you today, you could type something. You probably could type 2 or 3 things.
Right.
If you could write, if I asked you to write something that frightened you or that fear that was from your childhood, you probably could name several of them. That's because they are in play.
Mhm.
But here is what we're talking about, addressing them.
Right. Right.
Addressing them, acknowledging that they're there and addressing them.
Exactly. So you got to accept that those lies and those fears are
They're
there,
alive.
that they're in play, that you are, here's the deal, that you are acting on them,
Mhm.
that they are actually affecting you. You're not bulletproof. You know, they're not
That's
coming
right.
off you. They're actually affecting you. And guess what? You failed to face them, and you didn't even know that you could make changes.
Exactly. Especially when you're that young,
Yes,
you're
'cause
dealing
they
with
were
that.
embedded
You
in
didn't
your
know.
life, you know. And then just real quick example, all men are dogs, lies in the
Right.
mind,
How about that?
right? And here's the fear that goes along with that is that he's going to cheat on me.
That's
all
it.
men cheat.
Those are the things.
They
Those are the things
Yeah,
you hear.
they can't hold themselves. They're not
Right.
disciplined.
Right.
So that's how I heard it.
Yeah.
I never heard all men are dogs, they're going to cheat. How I heard
I
it in
have.
my house was they can't control themselves. Men don't have self-control.
So if you're out there and those are things that you've heard before, I would like to see either a thumb up or something. If you've heard those things, that all men are dogs, that men can't hold or contain
Control
themselves.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, because it was like
Yes.
common.
That's an example of lies in the mind. And
Lies.
And here's the deal. If you're honest, you are apprehensive or
Mm-hmm.
cautious in your relationships
Mhm.
because of that lie and that fear, because all men don't do that.
Exactly. Exactly. And here's another one. Women don't buy them no shoes because they're going to leave you. They're going to take them same shoes and leave you. I mean, just the ridiculousness of some of these things.
Right.
You know, that women, you just have to tolerate it because he's just a man. I mean, there were just, I can go on, and I'm sure that some of you could go on.
Yes, yes.
Simple things. They were lies. They were things that spoke to you, things that you heard that have laid dormant. And then there are things that just continue to speak to you, even about your own relationship. And you know, you've been in a relationship with this person for quite some time, and they've not showed you any of those things. But those things are still in the back of your mind.
Right.
We have got to make sure we address
Right.
them.
So you got to accept them.
Have to.
And know that they're in play. Yeah, we got like 5 minutes, and just face them, and know you need to know that you can make those changes.
Mhm.
So next week we'll be talking about hidden influences. So our first one, where it lies in the mind, fears
That speak.
that speak, and next week we'll talk about hidden influences. And these are the 3 categories or areas that we believe will definitely lead to divorce, or at least unhealthy and unproductive
Mhm.
relationships, marriage relationships in particular. So you guys, we talked a lot today. Hopefully you grabbed something out of this, Miss Kim. You want to address this one?
Oh, no, I was going to say that this week. I'll read it and then I'll say what I was
Okay.
going to say. Pastor Clay said the spirit of fear is a demonic spirit that is designed to distract and hinder us from moving forward in personal relationships, especially with the Lord. Absolutely.
Yep.
In every relationship, Pastor Robert, absolutely. What I was going to say is, because our time is pretty much up, but for us this week, for the rest of this week and continue on, when you notice that fear that's coming or speaking to you, whatever that thing is, keep in mind that fear is trying to take your focus.
Yes.
Take your focus off of what you should be doing. It's trying to control your emotions to make it seem like not stable, but the devil is a liar. To arrest your belief system, to try to tell you that you can't succeed. These are all lies. And the last thing, to try to repel God's love, to keep his love from you, which will help to drive out fear. So lead with love. Lead with love.
And this applies not just to marriage, you guys.
In everything.
Every area of your life.
Everywhere.
Whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. So we hope that you grab some more so that you can take with you to educate yourself, motivate yourself, and help yourself grow. And as usual, my friends, please, please, please make it a great day. Or not, because that choice is always yours. I'm Dr. Newt.
And I'm Kim.
And this was Launch.
Okay, guys, we'll see you next week. Lead with love.
We love you.
Make some noise in here! Who has the final say?
Jehovah has the final say.
Who has final say?
Jehovah has the final say.
No matter what the doctor says,
Jehovah has the final say.
no matter what the bills may say,
Jehovah has the final say.
I have,
No reason to fear.
I have
I got no reason to
the
fear.
Lord.
The Lord is my life.
Oh,
The Lord is my life.
You are tuned in to that praisey station, Praise.fm, where we get our praise on. 24 hours,